Moscow moved at its usual restless pace even in the early evening. Snowmelt clung to the edges of the sidewalks, reflecting the cold glow of streetlights and luxury storefronts along Tverskaya Street. From the top floor of a glass tower overlooking the city, Alexei Volkov stood silently by the window of his penthouse, a crystal tumbler untouched in his hand. At 42, he had everything money could buy: power, influence, respect, but peace remained elusive. Anna, the new cleaning lady, finished her work with quiet precision. She moved carefully, almost invisibly, as if trying not to disturb the air itself. Unlike the others before her, she never lingered, never asked questions, and never admired the view that most people would kill to see. She cleaned, straightened, and left, always before sunset. Alexei had noticed patterns. Years in business had trained his mind to observe details others ignored. Anna wore the same worn gray coat every day, no matter the weather. Her phone was old, the screen cracked, yet she never arrived late, never missed a day. And there was something else, something in her eyes. Not fear, not greed, but constant vigilance, as if she were racing against time. That evening, as Anna quietly gathered her supplies, Alexei made an impulsive decision. He grabbed his coat and keys, pretending to take a call as she left. From the underground garage, he watched her climb into a battered Lada, its engine coughing before coming to life. It didn't match the image of someone who worked in Moscow's most expensive building. He followed her through the maze of evening traffic, keeping a careful distance. The city slowly changed around them, glass towers giving way to Soviet-era apartment blocks, then to neglected industrial zones dusted with snow. Finally, Anna turned onto a cracked road leading toward an abandoned neighborhood long forgotten by developers and politicians alike. Alexei's grip tightened on the steering wheel. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. When Anna parked near a row of decaying houses, Alexei stopped farther back, killing his headlights. He watched her step out, pull her coat tighter, and disappear into one of the darkest buildings on the street. A chill ran through him, not from the Russian winter, but from the realization that the woman who cleaned his spotless home was living a life far more dangerous, hidden, and complicated than he had ever imagined. Alexei waited several minutes before moving. The abandoned street lay silent, broken only by the distant hum of the city far behind him and the creak of metal swaying in the wind. Snow crunched softly under his shoes as he stepped out of the car, pulling his expensive coat tighter around himself. The smell of damp wood and rust filled the air. This place felt forgotten, erased from Moscow's ambition. The house Anna had entered stood at the end of the street. Its windows were boarded unevenly, graffiti peeling from the walls like old scars. A single dim light flickered inside, powered by something fragile, perhaps a stolen generator or an illegal connection. Alexei couldn't imagine how anyone survived here, let alone chose to live. He approached cautiously, his breath fogging the cold air. From inside, he suddenly heard laughter. Children's laughter. Alexei froze. The sound was unmistakable, high, bright, alive. It didn't belong in a place like this. He moved closer to a broken window where one board had cracked. Through the narrow gap, he could see inside. Anna knelt on the floor, her gray coat discarded. Her face, so tired and restrained in his penthouse, was transformed. She was smiling freely as several children surrounded her, tugging at her sleeves, talking over one another. One boy proudly showed her a torn school notebook. A little girl clung to Anna's neck, her hair tied with mismatched ribbons. The room was bare but clean. A small iron stove glowed in the corner, casting orange light across patched walls. Mattresses lay neatly along one side. A pot simmered gently, filling the room with the smell of buckwheat and cabbage. Simple food, but warm. Alexei felt an unexpected tightening in his chest. He watched as Anna served the children, making sure each one ate before she touched her own plate. Her movements were familiar, practiced. This was no temporary arrangement. This was a life she had built with her own hands, hidden from a city that had no space for people like them. A sudden gust of wind rattled the boards, and one of the children glanced toward the window. Alexei stepped back into the shadows, his heart pounding. He felt like an intruder, not just on their privacy, but on a truth he had never bothered to see. This woman scrubbed marble floors by day and returned here by night, to ruins and responsibility. And standing in the cold, surrounded by decay, Alexei understood one thing clearly. Whatever story Anna was living, it was stronger and braver than anything money had ever given him. Alexei stepped forward before he could change his mind. A loose board snapped beneath his shoe, sharp and loud in the quiet street. Inside the house, the laughter stopped instantly. Anna turned toward the door. For a brief moment, they stared at each other through the dim light and drifting smoke from the stove. Her face drained of color. The children pressed closer to her, sensing danger they didn't understand. "Gospodin Volkov," Anna whispered, rising slowly. Her hands trembled. "You shouldn't be here." Alexei raised his palms, unsure why his heart was beating like he was the one being accused. "I followed you," he said honestly. "I needed to know." Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. The children watched him with wide eyes, some curious, some afraid. One boy instinctively stepped in front of the younger ones, as if shielding them. Anna closed her eyes for a second, then nodded toward a broken chair. "If you're here," she said quietly, "then you deserve the truth." She told him everything. Years ago, a fire had torn through an illegal shelter on the outskirts of Moscow, a place no officials wanted to acknowledge existed. Parents gone, documents burned, children scattered. Anna had been a volunteer cleaner there, paid almost nothing. When the fire happened, help never came. She couldn't walk away. She took the children one by one, slept on factory floors, worked nights, cleaned offices, lied when she had to. The abandoned house was the only place no one asked questions. "If the authorities find them like this," Anna said, her voice breaking, "they'll be separated, lost in the system." I couldn't let that happen. Alexei felt something crack inside him. He had spent years navigating contracts, courts, and power, but none of it prepared him for this kind of courage. "And my job?" he asked quietly. Anna looked up, tears slipping down her face. "I'll leave tomorrow. I swear, just please don't report us." The smallest girl tugged at Anna's sleeve. "Mama, are we in trouble?" That single word, "Mama," hit Alexei harder than any accusation ever could. He stood slowly, his decision forming with absolute clarity. "No," he said firmly, meeting Anna's eyes. "You're not in trouble." For the first time since he'd known her, Anna looked at him not as an employer but as a human being who might actually help. The next morning, Moscow woke beneath a pale winter sun. For Alexei Volkov, sleep had never come. The image of the children huddled around the iron stove, the way they had looked at Anna as their only certainty in the world, refused to leave his mind. By noon, everything was already in motion. Alexei did not arrive at his office that day. Instead, his driver took him back to the abandoned district, not with suspicion this time, but with purpose. When he stepped inside the broken house, Anna froze, fear flashing across her face. She had packed a single bag, ready to disappear if she had to. "You don't need to run," Alexei said calmly. "Not anymore." Within days, the wheels of influence turned quietly. A private lawyer handled the documentation. Doctors visited discreetly. The children received proper medical checks, warm clothes and real beds for the first time in years. No sirens, no social media, no spectacle. Alexei made sure of that. A restored townhouse on the edge of Moscow became their new home, modest by his standards, but safe, warm, and legally protected. The children stared in disbelief at running hot water, shelves of books, and a yard where they could play without fear. For them, it felt like stepping into a fairy tale they never believed was real. Anna struggled to accept it. "Why are you doing this?" she asked one evening, her voice barely steady. Alexei looked around the room, now filled with quiet breathing and scattered toys. "Because someone should have done it sooner," he replied. "And because you already are their mother, on paper or not." The adoption process took time, but Alexei stayed involved without intruding. He paid for schooling, tutors, therapy, things he once considered expenses, now investments in lives. He even sold the penthouse that suddenly felt empty and unnecessary. Months later, the abandoned house was demolished, its ruins cleared without ceremony. No one missed it, but no one lived in its shadows anymore. On a spring afternoon, Alexei watched the children run across the yard, laughing freely. Anna stood beside him, no longer a cleaner in borrowed clothes, but a woman standing tall in her own life. "You changed everything," she said softly. Alexei shook his head. "No," he replied. "You did. I just finally saw it." And in a city known for forgetting the weak, a quiet miracle took root, built not from wealth alone, but from the courage to care.